Hi everyone, this video is all about differentiating between skill and performance deficits before responding to problem behaviors in the classroom. So I'll give you a couple examples of the differences between skill and performance deficit. The question I have for you is, how many of you, if somebody offered you $1 million, would do a backflip? Okay, maybe there's some of you out there that could do a backflip. I certainly can't. So I'm not doing it. It's not that I don't want that $1 million. It's that I can't physically do a backflip. I might try. I don't think I would succeed. Okay, that's the example of a skill deficit. That's a can't do. It has nothing to do with that reinforcement not being valuable or me not wanting that reinforcement. It has everything to do with me not having the prerequisite skills to complete that task. Okay. Very similar to some of our students in classes. Maybe we have a student who is reading at a second grade level, and they're in a ninth grade class. Okay. And we say, why won't you just do your work? Why won't you just do your homework so you can pass this class? And the student's not doing their homework, not because they don't want to pass the class, but because there's academic skill deficits that are barriers to their success. Okay. Same thing. Maybe we're offering multi-step directions, and we tell a student, a young student, maybe once you follow these directions, you can go out to recess with the rest of your class. But you just must not care about recess because you're not following these multi-step directions, where maybe the student isn't able to process multi-step directions as quickly as their peers, and they're struggling to understand expectations. Okay, those are examples of skill deficits. Again, the issue isn't that the reinforcement isn't valuable. It's not that that student in the first example didn't care about passing the class or that the second student didn't care about recess. It had everything to do with lacking the prerequisite skills to successfully perform classes. Okay. If that's the case with our students, if problem behaviors are maintained by skill deficits, we need to address those skill deficits in a similar way that we address academics, which is teaching, practice, modeling, reinforcement. Okay. Just like we teach academics, we need to teach behavior. Okay. Maybe it's a student who, let's talk executive functioning. How many of you remember a student when you were in school that didn't have any binders, didn't have any organizational system, just walked around the classroom or the school with a big pile of papers? Okay, that was me in school. Okay, so maybe that's the reason our student isn't submitting homework. It has nothing to do with them not doing the homework. It has everything to do with them not being able to find it because organization is an issue. We need to teach organizational skills to that student. Maybe it's a student with limited expressive language skills who is running out to recess and pushing a student off the swing so they can use a swing. And we say, use your words, but maybe that student doesn't have those skills to express wants and needs. Okay, maybe it really is an academic skill deficit as well, where we have a student, again, that, like I talked about earlier, who's reading at a first grade level, but is in a ninth grade reading class. And we say, all you have to do is do your homework, right? But we need to scaffold instruction, practice, adapt instruction based on student needs, and then support that student with acquiring the academic skills they need to complete that task. And so think skill deficits, we need to approach it just like we would academic skills in general. Teaching, practice, modeling, reinforcement. Okay, so those are behaviors maintained by skill deficits. Think teaching just like we teach academics. All right, performance deficits are a little bit different. With a performance deficit, it would be like telling me, I'll run around my office and you'll give me a nickel. Okay, I could make it around the office. I'm not in the best of shape these days, but I could make it around my office. I'm not going to do it. And it has nothing to do with me not being able to. It has everything to do with that reinforcement not being valuable for me. I don't really care about a nickel. Okay, students might be the same way. Maybe they're sitting in your class saying, when am I ever going to need to do this? Okay. And they have the prerequisite skills to complete the task. They just don't see the value in completing the task. So if that's the case, if it's a performance deficit, if it's a won't do, not a can't do, we need to make learning more relevant and engaging. We need to make time in more reinforcing than time out. So in other words, we need to make it to where that student would rather participate than not participate. Okay. I'll give you a couple examples. When I was a high school math teacher, I had an issue with my students, especially first period, just either sleeping, having their heads down on their desk, not very engaged in my geometry algebra coursework. Okay. I found out what my students were interested in. They were interested into politics. So we brought the Electoral College into math activities that perfectly supplemented our curriculum. I saw an instant increase in task completion, homework completion, test scores by making learning more connected with what my students were interested in. We've had administrators stopping in the classroom to find out how the Electoral College worked. Okay, another thing I've done with younger students is maybe sending home surveys, questionnaires to families and saying, hey, we've got a unit coming up on fractions. Could you let me know how you use fractions at home so I can make this more relevant for your kids? Maybe they're fixing things around the house and using fractions. Maybe they are doing baking, cooking, going back to all my food examples. Okay, and I would implement that into my classroom to supplement what I was teaching about fractions. And then I would reach out to families and say, hey, by the way, if you want to record a brief video or an overview of how you applied this content with your child outside of school, we can bring that into instruction to make learning even more relevant. So I hope that gives you some ideas for addressing skill and performance deficits with your students. Thanks.